Welcome back. I've spent the past 25 years of my life immersed in addiction, neuroscience, and mind transformation through 2 degrees, philosophy, applied science, a career in Chinese medicine, and 15 years specializing in addiction recovery. And one of the experiences in my life that's been most literally transformative is learning the skills to overcome my addictions, to end my addictions, and learning the traps that kept me addicted and how to break free from those. So in this video, I'm going to share the 6 traps that most commonly keep people stuck in addiction and how to break free. So number 1 is not understanding the problem of addiction. You see, the conventional views for a very long time was that addiction is a disease, and that once someone has addiction, that you have this for life. And with this model, it really puts you in a very powerless position. It means that you are kind of assuming that you're going to have to fight the addiction for the rest of your life. And that's the paradigm that, or the way of understanding that people take on. And so addiction becomes this huge mountain that they feel like that they've just got to keep battling for the rest of their life. And in my understanding and in my experience with, literally 15 years and thousands of clients, this is not true. Um, there is some brain chemistry that gets altered with addiction, but that gets rebalanced quite quickly once the addiction has ended. And it is also true that people who have experienced some extreme trauma, either early in life or during their life, can have some changes in their brain chemistry and even brain structure. But this can also be resolved. And it doesn't all have to be resolved in order to end addiction. Addiction, from my point of view, is where the subconscious is taking over in order to regulate your state of being, to keep you safe, like without pain, and keep you comfortable. Um, Now, this only occurs if the conscious mind isn't able to provide this regulation. So the subconscious just takes over, and it's designed to take over, particularly the fight or flight system and the reward system, part of the hindbrain. And it's designed to take over to save you in times of emergency, to when you genuinely are in real survival danger. But this is now also being used just to regulate our ordinary state of being every day, not in that emergency kind of urgency state, but in more subtle ways, monitoring our state of being and keeping us comfortable. And if you notice addiction, it generally is something that changes your state of being. This is the real problem that we need to understand. And once you understand it from this point of view, you can learn skills to overcome addiction. Your conscious mind can learn to open its awareness to what's actually happening. And when you see what's happening consciously and feel what's happening in the body as well, the subconscious is also experiencing that at the same time. If you can supply or access a deeper state where you're not in pain, in fact, you're at peace and contentment, then the subconscious doesn't push the addiction. It lets go of the addiction because it's not needed. So this is a very different view to the disease model of addiction that someone has this kind of defect for life. I would see it more as an adaptation to try and help you regulate your state of being. Now, if we can upgrade those skills so that you can have access to a better state of being that's not going to harm you, then your subconscious will work. Your conscious and subconscious can work together. So number two is the second trap is not understanding that the addiction is not all about the drug or the behaviour. So gambling maybe being behaviour, or pornography, say, or the substance, let's say, being alcohol or opioids or whatever. See, the conventional view is that addiction really is about those substances or about those behaviours, and the problem there is that you end up you end up focusing on trying to stop those behaviours and stop taking that substance, and not realizing what I said before was that the subconscious is using these substances and behaviours to regulate your state of being. So if you simply take away the substance or the behaviour, you're left without your system's left without any solution to your state of being. And usually someone who has an addiction usually has some underlying unresolved emotional state, like, for example, could be lonely, could be bored, could be stressed, could be feeling life is meaningless, this kind of thing. And so if you simply take away the alcohol or take away the gambling or the pornography and and you're left without any way of handling this underlying emotional suffering, then that's not going to work for the system. We can see that straight away. So what we need to do is work on accessing a deeper state. Now, we have this deeper state within us. It's natural to us. We just don't know how to access it. So if we learn how to access that, then what ends up happening is the subconscious just literally lets go of the addiction. I saw a message today from one of my clients in the community who was just saying that they had their first day without alcohol. Usually they sit down in front of Netflix and have a bit of a binge on Netflix, which is probably an addiction itself. But this time they realized that they didn't actually feel that they needed to have that alcohol. That's the first time in years. I also got another message from someone who is opioid addiction, or quite strong addiction, and they had their first drug-free day in many, many years. And this is not because we're going into battle against the subconscious and battling to stop the behavior, to stop the action of taking the drug. This is because building up and addressing the real deeper problem that's underneath that. So the third trap is relying on what I call faulty and incomplete methods. Now, most of the conventional methods that I'm aware of are what I would call faulty and incomplete. They're incomplete because they don't address one part of the problem. So first of all, can you think of a method that you've tried that hasn't ended up requiring you to use willpower? Let's just take a pharmaceutical. You take the drug, and when you end the drug, even if that helps you with your cravings, then you end up still having cravings even if you've ended your addiction, and you then have to use willpower to deal with those cravings. Now, back in the day when I quit years ago, I thought having cravings after you quit your addiction was normal. Doesn't everyone get cravings continually after they quit their addiction? I thought that was normal. My understanding, but the way I see it now, it's completely wrong. Because if you think about it, you, me, and everybody else was not born with cravings for an addictive substance or an addictive behaviour. We were just not born with that. We learnt that. Our system learnt that. You see, so when you go to quit an addiction, if your brain doesn't return to a state where it doesn't generate cravings, that's not a complete solution, is it? Because you haven't gone back to the way you originally were. And if your system keeps on generating cravings, well, then a craving by its very nature is pushing you towards your addiction. You're wanting that. There's a force compelling you, and you have to use willpower against that. So then a strong emotional event occurs in your life, and you end up relapsing. That strong emotional event is really a powerful and state of being of suffering, isn't it? So your subconscious is coming in to try and regulate that with the addiction. And the point is that if you have cravings after you quit, well, that means that you are then vulnerable when your state of being gets to a certain level of intensity, because you haven't learned how to regulate your own state of being and access the real deeper solution. So all these methods that are out there, if you really look at them, if they leave you with cravings, they're not a complete solution. And they usually also don't address the deeper state of being, the deeper suffering that the addiction is covering. Some do, but most don't. So that's the real problem there. So the other issue with relying on what I call faulty and incomplete methods is that you're then left almost blaming yourself if when you attempt to quit with a particular method it doesn't work. You hardly ever think, well, that didn't work. You think, I failed. And that's not really fair, is it? Because you didn't fail. The method failed you. The method was incomplete. The method was faulty. So I really want to break that false belief right here. I want you just to wipe that out. You haven't failed. It's just that nobody's taught you correctly. So this brings up the fourth trap, and that is fighting your addiction. And you can see how with the faulty and incomplete methods, and where there's no real solution to providing an alternative state of being, that the subconscious is going to keep pushing the addiction because it's trying to solve the problem of your internal suffering, your internal discontent. So it's going to keep doing that. That's its job. It's trying to help you. Now, the conscious mind comes along and says, "Oh no, we can't keep doing this addiction because it's in the long term, it's going to be harmful. It's going to kill me. It's going to hurt me." So the conscious mind fights with the subconscious, and this fight is who's going to win? Is it the conscious mind's going to win or the subconscious? Well, the subconscious is programmed to take over in an emergency. It will win. And even if you end up using willpower and fighting your addiction, and let's say you quit your addiction, and the cravings maybe get less in intensity and less frequent over the years, you're still vulnerable because the addiction, that program in your brain just goes dormant. It's not gone. It just goes dormant until a strong emotional event occurs. So you're always living kind of with this risk of relapse, or you're having to fight continually. So the fight means that really we haven't given the subconscious what it needs. The subconscious just wants you to be safe, in other words, without pain and suffering, and happy. In other words, having some kind of contentment or pleasure. Now, deep peace and contentment, deep peace and contentment is inherently safe, and it's the deepest pleasure. Contentment and peace is the deepest pleasure, and it's a state of being, isn't it? It's an internal state of being. Now, I know you might think, well, that's I've wanted that all my life, and that's just not realistic. Well, the thing is, nobody's ever taught you step by step how to access that. And it's not something that you would get from the external world. It's not about creating a situation going to a perfect place. It's always manifesting as a state within you. And you can, and it's actually deep down, it is our natural state. Everything else is this turbulence that's trying to make up for the lack of access to that. As soon as we access that, everything starts to fall into place. Somehow the subconscious aligns to the truth of that, lets go of the addictions. So fighting your addiction is just a sign that you're using what I would say an incomplete, willpower being an incomplete solution. It's not addressing the real problem. To address the real problem, the subconscious will simply let go of the addiction. Okay. So this brings me to trap number 5, which is believing that you're the problem. Now, you might now realize from some of the things I've said that not understanding the problem, thinking that you've got a disease in your brain or your psychology, using faulty and incomplete methods, fighting your addiction. There's all these, what I would call faulty, literally wrong understandings will lead you to conclude that there's something wrong with you if you haven't been able to quit. And the good news is that none of that's true. It's the understanding, it's the methods and the advice that they lead to that is the problem. You've never failed. You're not broken. You're not faulty. It's just that nobody has showed you the way. And unfortunately, this is not common knowledge. And so it's almost as if everybody thinks the same. You try and all of your friends and family, everyone would be thinking the same, that somehow, you know, what we think is I'm weak, not strong enough, I'm broken. But you're not. You're not weak, right? Because willpower is not needed when you do it properly. You're not broken because, yes, there's some chemical changes in your brain and things like that, but there are for every state and every condition. The brain's constantly reorganizing itself, and it will heal and reorganize. The truth is that deep within we have exactly what the subconscious is looking for and what the conscious mind is looking for, both looking for the same thing, just looking for you to be safe and happy. The subconscious is looking for that now in your state of being, right now, and the conscious mind's looking for now and the future, you see. So if you can learn to access this deeper nature, what you are, uh, then both sides of your being will be in alignment, and you'll realize that you were never the problem. You just didn't have the right understanding. So the way that we access this deeper state is we need to open our awareness. Because it's a state within us, it's always with us. We're just not aware of it. So we need to go through preparation in order to learn this skill. So this is trap number 6, is thinking that you can just set a date and quit without really any preparation. It's just psych yourself up, you know, maybe go away on holidays or wait for the perfect time, wait for the perfect feeling, perfect date, and then just use willpower. So in other words, the point of this number 6 trap is not preparing properly. Now, preparation is not any of those things I just said. It's not about picking a date or psyching yourself up or being determined or changing your environment or, avoiding situations or distracting yourself or keeping busy. It's about learning to open your awareness to more of what's present right now, more of what's going on right now, what you can actually feel, what is going on in your mind, your memory, your imagination, your thoughts, literally what you can see and hear. And in order for you to do that, in order to open your awareness, it does require you to consciously become more still. And as you become more still, your mind becomes more still, your um, your whole feeling, your body starts to relax. And then this state of peace starts to arise naturally. Naturally. And this can deepen and deepen. Now, it does take some time to prepare. It's like learning to drive a car. There's a certain, set of skills that you will need. There's certain pitfalls that you need to learn how to overcome. But you can do this. And I think you can already feel it within yourself. If you've noticed that you were following me when I was saying about your state of being just now, that you already have this ability. It's a dormant ability. And it's not hard. It's a skill. And if you learn it step by step, each step is achievable. All right. So it's about growing. It's about transforming. Now, transformation and growth. Well, growth is really actually going into the unknown, isn't it? It's going from where you are, the known, into the unknown. And the unknown is unknown. It's a little bit maybe scary, uncertain. Maybe don't feel confident. Maybe there's a bit of fear. That's normal. That is part of growth. It's part of transformation. But then you get comfortable with that expanded experience, expanded awareness. And then you take the next step again and again and again. And before long, you realize that you're in a very different place. And it doesn't require any special intelligence or education, because this is just experiencing what with our faculties that already exist. It's just experiencing what is occurring and learning to recognize your state of being, learning to, in a sense, cultivate a deeper state, really open up to that. So if you want to learn more about that, by the way, you can actually register and watch my free masterclass. There'll be a link in the description for that. And I'll go through in the masterclass a lot of the neuroscience behind all of this, and a lot more detail around what's required to change a state. But obviously, this does take some time, some weeks or months. And it doesn't just apply to the behaviour of addiction. This operates in our emotional life as well. So when you end your addiction, what ends up happening is that the underlying state of discontent or suffering, whatever that is, that will be manifesting as a, a feeling. You might not even recognize it right now, but it's there. I mean, some people just say, I'm bored, or um, you know, I'm not satisfied, or I'm stressed, but these are very general terms. It's once you start to feel it, not just think about it, to feel it more deeply and learn how to, for that to transform. I mean, you don't just get stuck with it just when you feel it, but learn how to allow that to transform. Then you find that the addiction starts to fall away. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. And the next video will be going into more of um, uh, some of the aspects around mind transformation, and how we can become more free in our life, not just from addiction, but and more content. That's what we're really looking for, isn't it? All right, so bye for now. See you in the next one.